Please, and you can state your name and position. This is also a PCS, so I need a motion to put the PCS before us. Representative Elmore makes that motion. All in favor, please say aye. And it is before us. Thank you, Mr. Seegers. You can.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Seegers. Is this on?
If the green light's not on, it's not.
There we go. I'm Kevin Seegers with the State Treasurer's Office. I'm the Chief Investment Officer. And so I was going to step through the background of the bill, House Bill 1209, which the State Treasurer strongly supports. It's consistent with her longstanding commitment to protect and grow the pension system in the interest of the employees and the retirees over the long haul. And this bill was developed through the work of an independent commission that the Treasurer brought together this past January. It was 11 individuals, including 4 elected officials, Representatives Dollar and Glazier, Senators Hayes and McKissick, and then folks from the private sector who have some expertise in investments and in governmental affairs, as well as active members and retirees of the retirement systems, all of the systems that were retiring, that were investing on behalf of the participants. There was a lot of discussion over a 4-month period with this commission over some potential changes to the governance structure and the way that the investment program is operated and governed. There was not consensus through the discussions with respect to some very large policy decisions, whether there should be a board or there should continue to be a single trustee fiduciary in the form of the treasurer. But there was very strong consensus on a number of issues, which is what resulted in this bill. So the 11 members had a very strong consensus and endorsed these items that are in the bill. The flavor of what guided what ended up in the bill and what drove the consensus was to take some of the best practices that the Treasurer has had in policy and codify that into law. So there's a number of things which I'll touch on very briefly in terms of the sections of the bill that represent current practice. And then there are some new and evolving best practices in terms of accountability and transparency that the Commission felt strongly should be put into law. And then there's flexibility in terms of how the investments are actually operated on a day-to-day basis in terms of staff and other types of resourcing flexibility. So would you like me to step through the sections of the bill?
Representative Ross, it's up to you on that. Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
All right. So I'll be brief, and Section 1 of the bill enhances the state's existing audit practices by requiring annually published financial statements that would be audited by an external expert auditor chosen by the state auditor and engaged by the state auditor. So there's independence between the treasurer, the operations of the actual investments, and then this audit function. And the Commission felt strongly that that was a good way to create some assurance for all of the stakeholders, the retirees and the participants, in the financial controls associated with the investment program. Section 2 requires that the current treasurer, future treasurers would at least every 4 years bring in another expert firm that would look at the way and the manner in which the investments are actually affected over time. And so this is not an audit, this is a performance review that would be done by an external firm. And they would look at cost effectiveness of the program, asset allocation, all of the policies that govern how the investments occur for the retirement systems. Section 3A expands and modernizes the reporting that is going to touch on the fees, the performance, all of the information relative to the individual investment managers that we utilize for the overall investment program. So the Treasurer has already published this information on an annual basis, and this would codify this requirement going forward so that there would be more information in future years for the investment management program. Section 3B clarifies public record laws pertaining to the investment program. So this bill would actually shorten the period of time for which certain investment information would be exempt from public records. So currently, if an investment manager deems certain information to be proprietary and confidential or trade secret, that information can be protected under this exemption for infinity. It's always protected. What this bill does is it creates a sunset, and it says at a certain point in time, 10 years after that investment is done, all of that information would be subject to public records and would be open and visible to anyone who wants to look at the information. We think that's a very good balance between the competing interests of trying to get the best investment managers having access to very sensitive private company information and individual information, and the public interest in looking at how the investment program is actually working and being able to look at the contracts and those kinds of things. So this would be, when we compare it to other states, this would be a significant change and a best practice in terms of setting a definitive timeline when all of the information would be subject to public records and be available for inspection. Section 4 is something that the Commission felt very strongly about in terms of creating flexibility for the state treasurer in terms of resourcing, being able to hire individuals and compensate them to be competitive with market standards. We're competing every day to get the best and the brightest staff and the best and brightest investment managers and individual investments, and this would give us the flexibility to do that. Section 5 deals with registration of placement agents as lobbyists. This was a recommendation that came to us through a study that was done jointly with the Department of Justice as well as an external law firm, and it was a recommendation that we took on board and have offered it up in this legislation. The Section 6 and 7 are more technical in nature and deal with the requirement to have a investment policy statement, which is an overarching policy with respect to the way that we do the investments. So I will pause there.
Okay, thank you. And, I think we'll just, would you just mind staying around the side in case we have a question that either our presenters or sponsors cannot answer? And I thank you for that. If there's anything you want to add, Representative Wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin did a nice job in going through the provisions of the bill. I would just like to add that this legislation, if we pass this, will bring us here in North Carolina into the forefront of transparency as far as pension reporting. I don't think there's maybe one other state that has as much transparency or will have as much transparency, and that would be Florida. And this puts us probably on equal ground with Florida. So these are good measures, and I hope that you will support it and take questions.
Before we take questions from the committee, I have had one member of the public that wanted to speak. Ms. Watkins from SEANC, would you please approach the mic there, just give us, we know, tell us who you are, who you represent, and you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Artis Watkins. I'm Legislative Affairs Director for the State Employees Association of North Carolina. I thank Representative Collins and the rest of the members of this committee for a chance to speak with you briefly. We oppose House Bill 1209 for a number of reasons. We don't think the bill is entirely bad. The audit section at the beginning of the bill, an audit is something we have been calling for quite some time with the retirement system. It's overdue, sorely needed, but it's in the budget. You already have a provision for an audit for the retirement system. The rest of this bill, though, let's see if I can make this happen in the allotted time. It's a large bill. It does a lot of things, but perhaps the most problematic for us is how it fails the people of this state with regard to secrecy. I'm not even going to use any other term. It's secrecy. When you make a public records request to say, where is our money? And when I say our money, the members of the State Employees Association and all the other state employees and the retirees before them have regularly put 6% every month in this system. That's where the money came from to be invested. That and the employer contribution, which is a benefit of their employment and they have worked for. So that money being invested is the people's. But when the people ask to see the details, who's got it? Where are they putting it? How much risk is associated with where we're putting it? This is the kind of thing we got back. Completely redacted. Even under the who part, who's in this company? And then, best yet, it said there are inherent risks that are large involved with this type of investment as outlined below. Welcome. I think we've passed one of these out to most of you, but if you hadn't seen it, please come find me sometime. This is not acceptable. This kind of behavior fails the employees and retirees, it fails the taxpayers, and it fails you as a body. If you pass this legislation, what you're doing is saying that 10 years after these contracts are over, the public can know what they did. These contracts run 12 to 15 years on average. Now that's according to the industry, not according to me. So you would be binding the state and keeping the people out for a generation. For what purpose? I've heard it said, nobody will do business with us, and that's absolutely untrue. Pennsylvania teachers in retirement system accidentally, put some of their records online. The sky didn't fall, but you know what they found out? Waterfall agreements, rolling interest, all kinds of interesting things. Multiple fees. Last year, y'all took a step to put 34% of the retirement system on the table, available for alternative investments, the higher risk, high fee stuff. The rest of the country is taking some steps to sort of tighten the belt on those things. CalPERS, the largest retirement system in the country, has cut their allocation this year by half, down to 10%. Placement agents, New York City's retirement system banned the use of those, and we're still embracing them here. This bill's bad. It's going to enshrine bad practice. It's not going to be a balance. It's going to, for a generation, keep the public out of what they have a right to know. And I'll close with this because I see the chair's reminding me of my time, and I appreciate him indulging me. But I will close with this. We have $1 billion in this retirement system that has a nexus with Credit Suisse. That company pled guilty to tax evasion, to stealing from the U.S. government. We have $1 billion of our $87 billion with them. I'm not okay in North Carolina with saying we don't need to see what's going on. I'm not okay with getting blacked out pages from people who have said, yes, we stole from the government. And I'm asking you not to be okay with that and vote no today. Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
I think someone from the State Retirees Association is here. Would you, I think you said you would like to speak on this? If you would give us your name and position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jack Kazor. I represent the North Carolina Retired Governmental Employees Association and its 54,000 members. We're very much in support of this bill. We think it sets the right balance between giving the treasurer the flexibility needed to run the program, the right amount of transparency, and the right amount of control. So we very much favor it. We thank the State Commission for bringing it forward. And I can also say that retired school personnel who are also represented here today also support this bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public that came to speak to that? Those are only two to three questions. Representative Ross, would you like to respond or address anything that's come up?
Well, just the first speaker mentioned two pension plans that are pulling back on alternative investments, and I'd like to just point out that the two pension plans mentioned are two that you read about in the news all the time as being underfunded and a lot of trouble. I think they may be pulling back for another reason. As far as the issue raised as far as reporting of certain provisions or reporting of certain items from outside managers, I'd just like to say that I've been in the pension business probably for close to 40 years. And if I had the trade secrets that a lot of the independent managers have, I would be as rich as Warren Buffett. But unfortunately, these individuals and companies that do this work are they have very sophisticated programs that they use to accomplish the goals that they accomplish. whether it be in currency or whether it be in futures, whatever the investment may be. And those are protected, and they're protected from other competitors. It's a very competitive environment. And I think it's important to understand, just like in any other industry, you got patent protection, you got other protections that take place. Managers are protected, or they protect themselves through contracts that they have both with our pension plan and other pension plans. And if we start violating the contract provisions that we have with some of these managers, we will lose some of our best and brightest managers. And I think that's something important to keep in mind.
Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question in how the Treasurer's Office does investments. Do they have individual people like brokers who do the trading there, or are they all bought by other, or they bid on, or whatever that's done?
It's a complicated process because there are a number of different investments involved. Some of those are done in-house. Some of the more, I don't want to call it simple, but some of the transactions that can be done in-house are done in-house. The more sophisticated programs, more sophisticated types of investments are done outside because it's very hard to have the capability and the resources to do what the different managers do. They're all different. They all have different processes. And so that part is done outside.
Follow up, about how many people are managers of the different things?
Mr. Seegers to help you with that. Since we've got somebody who's the chief investment officer, let's let him handle some of these
Questions about specifics in the treasurer's office?
Right, so with respect to the specific question, how many people are involved? So we have about 28 positions currently. It's about a quarter of the average pension fund of the same size. If you look at other state pension funds, we use external managers extensively to make a number of the more complicated investments. We do manage, both for the retirement system and for state operating monies, about $40 billion internally with our fixed income staff. They buy very high quality government bonds and corporate bonds and things like that. Does that answer your?
Yep, one more follow-up. On the tenure to be able to be knowing what's going on there after the last investment there, how would you ever recover anything from there if it's 10 years after you stop, when it may be a 10-year or 12-year contract?
Yes.
To do?
So, I'm sorry. So to be very clear, the 10 years is an exemption from public records requests, but for staff, for the state auditor, for the state controller, for the auditor that would be hired by the state auditor, they have complete unfettered access to all of the contracts. And part of our issue is we're trying to strike a balance. We receive, as part of our due diligence of potential managers and then ongoing monitoring of existing managers, wealth and wealth of private information is highly sensitive. So we're monitoring that, our consultants are monitoring it. The legislature as well has unfettered access to any of these contracts and any of these documents. So this is really, we're talking about having a public records exemption, just to be clear.
Representative Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I have a lot of constituents who are affected by what we do here in this committee, especially dealing with pensions and retirement. So my question is, how important is it that we pass this bill during a short session, or would it be a problem if we had to wait till a long session?
I think that one of the first things that strikes me is that we want to be able to go ahead and get the independent audits if there are dates in the bill. If we wait till the long session, we will pass the date for setting some of the reporting requirements. That's probably the biggest reason.
Any other questions from the committee? Representative Bluss?
having some problems with page 4, line 12, that this provision little d, and I don't remember that from the study committee, but I'm having trouble understanding the need for that, because I remember long ago in law school taking a securities regulation course, and the only thing I can really remember of it was all the rules governing disclosure. And we're talking about public investments here and buying security. It was securities regulation. I think almost everything the pension plan the treasurer would delve in would be a security, which is highly regulated under federal law. I just cannot get a grasp of what secretive process or whatever could be used when you're trading public securities on open exchanges, and maybe some of these, maybe we do private placements, I don't know, but there's even a lot of regulation on what constitutes someone who can qualify for private placements even. This whole industry is highly regulated and very supposedly open to the public. I don't understand what we need to keep hidden for 10 years after the end of the contract. And I'm sure we can't do anything that would go against the federal regulations of all these different investment vehicles. So I'm just would like some guidance as to why this is needed and some examples of what would be non-disclosable, why it cannot be a public record.
Let's let our investment officer handle that, since he's the one that deals with that.
I'll start, and then I'll let Kevin. And you're absolutely correct. A security is a regulated instrument, whether it's a stock, a bond, or whatever. In fact, all securities are regulated. Where you get into the issue is trading platforms are not necessarily regulated like a security. Trading platforms are proprietary. You may have an investment manager that has a very, very sophisticated trading platform. He doesn't want to share with his competition, and so for that reason, they keep it's a lot of mathematical algorithms and all kind of things way beyond my grasp that can go into these trading platforms. They're very, very secret within the industry among managers. They don't want the competition to know what they're doing because that gives them an unfair advantage in trying to get investment returns, because they're all competing against each other for investment returns. What we're dealing with here is at the end of a contract, we may terminate a contract or have a contract terminated with an investment manager, but his trading platform is going to go on. He's going to be doing business somewhere else or with somebody else. And he doesn't want his trade secrets, out floating around where his competitors can get it. And I'll let Kevin add to that.
Sure. So I'll go to a different type of investment where we do have very sensitive information in addition to what Representative Ross has discussed. So there's a number of investments that are outside of public securities, which are in the private space. So they could be private real estate, they could be private companies, where we're getting information about the actual operating business plans for these, say it's a real estate office building. So it's information about leases, the term of the lease, the rates, who they're leasing to. We get information about individual companies and their business plans, their employees, succession plans. All of that comes to us as part of what we believe we need to do as a fiduciary to oversee these investments. And we get it before we even invest with managers, because we want to see what drove their performance over time. And it's part of how we rate managers and determine whether they're have sufficient skill and ability to deliver returns over time for the retirement system. I think the other thing that is relevant is we're investing alongside other investors. And we do get information about who these other investors are. These are private foundations and endowments and individuals, high net worth individuals, and public pension plans and corporate plans. And we know how much they're investing with this manager alongside of us. and that's information that they would prefer not to give to the public domain either. So those are some examples. Happy to follow up with additional information.
I would like to then do something to change the statute of limitations or repose or something, so that later, when the information's made public and someone might find information out for the first time, it's not too late for them to act on it in some sort of legal fashion.
Well, again, the people who can operate on this in a legal fashion, the auditor, us as the General Assembly, we can already get access to this information. We're talking about making it broadside public knowledge. And again, to bring down to shoe leather what Mr. Seeger is talking about, our pension plan invests in a lot of things. You could become, anybody in here, Representative Elmore could become a very successful, could come up with some kind of new restaurant, be a very successful restaurateur who's got franchises selling like hotcakes all over the place. And our pension system could study that and find out if the business model is correct and if all his numbers are good and if his growth potential is whatever. We could invest in that. And you know, Representative Elmore certainly wouldn't want all of his business information, as you wouldn't if you were the business owners, made public. I mean, it can be as simple as something like that. Representative Michaud, saw you had your hand.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I walked in here, I think, having an idea about this, but I want to try to let the shoe leather hit the pavement. What does this bill do? Does this bill do anything to restrict the treasurer's ability to make the investments needed in our fund? I've heard, and I'm trying to find out why there are some folks opposed to it, why there are some folks for it.
I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, I don't think this bill does anything to restrict investment choices or do anything like that. That's not really, it seems to me the main matter of contention so far has been the length of time for public disclosure for all contracts.
May I ask a further question?
You may.
Okay, I just, for some reason or other, I had that idea, somebody had spoken to me about this bill. I guess it's, the problem then is the length of time that it takes for disclosure for the public.
That has been the point of contention so far in this meeting, yes, sir.
Well, why can't we extend the statute of limitations on it? On any action that's necessary beyond that 10-year period?
Well, again, I'm not sure we need to do that, but because the only, in other words, there is still full disclosure for our state auditor, for our controller, for us, is.
I understand that, but I guess what a lot of folks are concerned about is if somebody from the public goes out there and finds something that the state auditor or somebody missed during that period of time, you got a 10-year statute of limitations. You can make it from the point, even, you don't have to have a statute, you can say it, at the time it's discovered, up to 15 years at the time it's discovered, or something like that to be put in there.
I think one of our representatives may have an amendment that may take care of part of this issue. The other thing to keep in mind, committee, is that currently there is no public disclosure requirement whatsoever. If we don't pass this bill, the treasurer can continue not to disclose anything about these contracts. They don't want to forever. So we're not lengthening something to 10 years. We're contracting it from infinity to 10 years right now. But I believe we do have an amendment being forwarded to you from Representative Conrad. And I'll give that time to be passed out. And Representative Michaud, I think this will take care of the issue you were talking about. If indeed, and I'm not a lawyer, if indeed the statute of limitations is 10 years, then this should bring it within that. Does everybody have this amendment before them by this point in time? Anybody not? Anybody not have it? It should have Representative Conrad written at the top. It's 1209 ASH 18, version 1. If you notice, it's a pretty simple amendment. It changes that 10 years that we were talking about to 5. which again would now bring it below the 10-year statute.
That I think might make it a little bit more palatable,
Okay.
because 10 years is a long time, and I hate to keep the public out, but here again, I agree that you've got all the other fail-safe methods in there. This, I don't have any problem once, if you put this.
So now our 5 years does bring it below the 10-year statute of limitations you were talking about. Any, Representative Ross, you have any comment on the amendment?
That bill sponsors would be agreeable.
Okay, anybody else have any comment or question about the amendment? All right, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. Thank you very much. Also think we have one more amendment that we need to bring forward. Representative Brawley has an amendment that he would like to bring forward at the time. Has this one been distributed? You should already have this one, I believe. This is 1209 ASH 17, version 1. If it doesn't have a name on it, the name is Representative Brawley.
If I might explain the amendment.
Go right ahead, Representative Brawley.
What this amendment does, the way the bill is currently written, it allows the employees in the Treasurer's Department to participate in political activities. What my amendment does is say that they come under the same rules of political activity as the rest of the state employees, and the Treasurer's Office is agreeable with the amendment.
Any response, Representative Ross?
That bill sponsors would be agreeable with this.
Any question or comment about this amendment? If not, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That amendment passes. We're back to the bill. Is there any further question or comment on the bill itself? Let me make sure there's no other questions or comment. All right, Representative Brawley, you're on.
Make a motion that we give the bill a favorable report, roll the amendments into a proposed committee substitute, give that a favorable report, unfavorable to the original bill.
And refer to appropriations.
And refer to appropriations.
Thank you very much. Did a better job on that than I would have without it here in front of me. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Representative Ross. We do have one more bill for consideration today. That is